Welcome to our weekly program, The Inside Story of Chabad in America through the Mindel Archives. 2 weeks ago, we spoke about the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nei Noach and also about the Shulchan Aruch that the Rebbe wanted to be printed of Sheva Mitzvahs B'nei Noach, and also a letter that the Rebbe wrote to someone that wanted to become a convert, to discourage. If you want to see, you can always click back and see the previous program. Today, I want to share with you a letter that the Rebbe, that a person wrote to Rabbi Khadakov, and the Rebbe made notations on this. This person comes from Anusim, Marranos. They lived in the year 1492. They lived in Spain, time of Inquisition, and he wants to become a ger, a convert. So what should he do? He wrote to Rabbi Khadakov in Yiddish, and I'll try to translate it in English. And also Ethiopians, they came back. Some people say they're Yidden. Not what should we do with as far as becoming a Yidden? Also, at the end of this program, I want to share with you a very interesting story of Reb Moshe Feinstein. So this person, Rabbi Khadakov answers this person, that's written in Yiddish, and I'll try to translate in English. In the answer of your letter that you wrote on Erev Shabbos Breishis, that you're asking what you would do about a young man whose father is Jewish and the mother comes from Marranos. She knows she comes from Anusim. So what she would do, she was raised by Christians, but she knows she comes from Anusim. Anusim, then they were Yidden, but now we don't know who they are, but she claimed that she comes from Anusim. And this young man, the son, was circumcised, but he had a Christian upbringing. And now he wants to become 100%. He writes over here, a ganze Herz von der Yiddische Kal. He wants to become a Yid. So Rabbi Khadakov says, with the Rebbe's notations, the law is that when a person has a Jewish father and a Christian mother, or they were raised by Christians and they come from Anus, they claim they come from Anusim, that doesn't make her a Jewish woman. And this young man that you're talking about, if he wants to become a Yid, he has to be Megayer. He didn't say to discourage like we read that time, because they feel they're Yidden or Ethiopians, so he should be Megayer. What's called Megayer? What is he supposed to do? He's supposed to have a bris milah, circumcision, also tefillah, immerse in a mikveh, and also kabbalas ha-mitzvahs, to accept all the mitzvahs. And these three things should be with three Yidden, three Rabbonim. In this case, of this young man, since he's married, so his wife is not Jewish, she also should be Megayer. Because if he is Mekabel, the mitzvahs, he has to live with a Yiddish woman, not with a Gentile. And if this young man does all these three things, he becomes 100% a Ger Tzedek, a Emes. If the Rav lives not far and he wants to be Megayer, he says he should, before he goes to the mikvah, he should take out some blood. And then, after both are Megayer, so they have to separate for 3 months. They shouldn't live together. So the children, when she becomes pregnant, will know that 100% that the child is a Yid, 100% a Yid. This is how he answers with all the Rebbe's Hagoyos over here. Then in another letter, I guess it's connected to this one. I don't know why, but it's connected. And Gentiles should know, a Gentile, not a person that comes from Anusim or Ethiopians. A Gentile should know, Jews, children of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, have later been given more commandments, not only the 7 mitzvahs. But, the Rebbe says here, it doesn't diminish the Gentiles because they only have 7 mitzvahs and Yidden have more. Their connection to God, when they do the 7 mitzvahs with all the ramifications, God gave them the vehicle to attain connection with God, just like a Yid keeps the 630 mitzvahs. But the Rebbe said over here, and I'm going to read, if a person thinks that there is no need to connect the laws of ethics, morality with divine authority, we have seen in our own day and age that an entire nation, the advancements and ethical system sink to the lowest depth of inhuman barbarism. And the reason for this, they thought they could establish a morality, ethics based on human reason, not authority of not a higher, a supreme being. So in other words, when they do the 7 mitzvahs, they have to know that they don't do it because there is a Eibishter, not because of ethics. This is what the Rebbe writes over here. Now, I want to share with you a story. We're talking about a ger, convert, and the converts also have different halachas as far as marrying, who they can marry, who they cannot marry. I want to share with you a story. In the 50s, and I knew the people, there was a college student, and he was a Jew, but she was not Jewish. So she wanted to convert. They went to a Reform rabbi, and he converted them. Her, I'm sorry, he converted her. Not he was a Yid. And later on, a year later, she realized that the Reform conversion is not a kosher conversion. A Reform rabbi converts, it's not kosher. And she wanted to become 100% a Yid. Mamish with an emes. I knew her very well. She learned a lot. She went to Rabbonim, and they discouraged her constantly, and she wanted to become a Yid. And as far as I know, that it says that if a goy keeps Shabbos, he's chayiv misa. She kept Shabbos, but she put a light. She put the light on once because she knew that she is not Jewish. So she put the light because she knew that a goy is not allowed to keep Shabbos. That's how much she was 100%. So they went to Rabbonim. The end is, if you see that a goy wants to become a Yid 100%, so they went to Rabbonim, and the Rabbonim were Megayer her. Now she became a ger, and through her becoming a ger, he became frum. So he's frum and she's a ger, and they got married. They got married by a kosher Rav 100%. As a matter of fact, they even had a child or two, and they had shalom bayis, and it was very good. He looked for a job. So in a city somewhere, he found a job as a principal in a yeshiva. I think it was a English principal, if I'm not mistaken, not in a yeshiva. He came Labor Day. Yeshiva starts a day after Labor Day. Rosh Hashanah was a month after, so he was a principal. They loved him. He was a good principal. He was a good person, and they moved to that city. It came Rosh Hashanah, a month later, in the shul, where all the people are. It came to Duchen, a priestly prayer, Duchen, at the end of davening, the Kohen Duchens. He went up and he Duchened. It became a whole commotion, because he they know that she's a convert. She's a Geir Tzedek. And he is a Kohen, because he duchent. A Kohen cannot marry a convert. They didn't know what to do. After Yontif, after Rosh Hashanah, they called him over in a nice way, and they told him, I'm sorry. He didn't know. I don't know why when they got married, the Rav didn't ask him if it was a Kohen. That I don't know. But he didn't know that a Kohen cannot live with a Geyeris. He says, what? He says, what should I do? Well, they say, we can't have you in the yeshiva. I mean, you're not supposed to live with a Geyeris. He says, but he has children, and he has Shalom Bayis. He has to destroy his whole life. I mean, he didn't know what to do. He said, I'm sorry. So he was not a Chabad, but he was a friend of Chabad. The Rav that was Megayer him was not Chabad, but he was close to Chabad. So he told him, you know what, write to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Tell him the story. He wrote to the Rebbe this problem that he married a Geyeris and he has a job, and so the Rebbe answered, go to Rabbanim. So he Bedavke wanted to go to Lubavitcher Rav. So they told him, go to Rabbi Dvorkin. Rabbi Dvorkin then, in the 50s, did not live in Crown Heights. I think he lived in Philadelphia, or he lived in Pittsburgh. So he went to Rabbi Dvorkin. He went to Rabbi Dvorkin, and he told Rabbi Dvorkin that the story. Rabbi Dvorkin said, I don't know what to tell you. Now, Rabbi Dvorkin was a real Rav. What I mean by that is, a Rav has to know the Arba Chelke Shulchan Aruch. But a Rav has to have also a fifth Shulchan Aruch. Rabbi Dvorkin had a fifth Shulchan Aruch. And certain things that a Rav sometimes that says in Shulchan Aruch do this and this, but sometimes you need a fifth Shulchan Aruch. He says, I don't know what to tell you. Now, this reminds me, and I said it once in my program, my Rabbi Mindel had a health problem once in Tisha B'Av. He didn't know whether he should fast or not. So he went to the previous Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he asked him, what should he do Tisha B'Av? He had a problem with his health then. So the Frierdiker Rebbe told him, ask a Rav. And before he walked out, the Rebbe told him, don't forget to ask a Klugner Rav. Ask a smart Rav. So he went to Reb Shmuel Levitin, this was his Rav, he was a smart Kluger Rav. He says, if the Rebbe says, ask a Kluger Rav, you're allowed to eat on Tisha B'Av. So Rabbi Dvorkin was not just a Rav, he had a fifth Shulchan Aruch. He says, I can't help you here. Go to Reb Moshe Feinstein. He went to Reb Moshe Feinstein. Reb Moshe Feinstein had a minhag in the morning, after davening, he wrapped his tefillin, and people lined up to ask him shaylas. So he went, and it came to his turn. He came to Rabbi Feinstein, and he said to Rabbi Feinstein that this problem that he has. He says, do you have parents? He says, no. He says his parents passed away when he was a little boy. They passed away in the Holocaust. And do you have any other relatives? He says he doesn't have. Some relatives passed away in the Korean War. He says he had no relatives. He has the third cousin, fourth cousin. He says they don't even know him. That's all. But he has no relatives. So if you have, how do you know you're a Kohen? So he says because he remembers that when he was 5 years old, his father went to Duchen. He remembers. So since then, that's all he knows. He was 5.5 years old. So Rabbi Feinstein thinks and thinks and thinks, and he says, well, you're a Kohen. You're not a Kohen. He made him his Kohen. He gave him a letter. There's his Kohen. He went back to Rabbi Dvorkin, and he told Rabbi Dvorkin what Rabbi Moshe Feinstein told him. So Rabbi Dvorkin said, this is the koyach of a real Rav. That here, he thought he was a Kohen, he made him his Kohen. So Baruch Hashem, with this letter, he went back to the place and he showed them what Rabbi Feinstein said, and this is what happened. So there's certain halachas that's involved in Geirus. In Mitzvah Hashem next week, I think we will continue our third part as far as the Sheba Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, our third program. Thank you.